There is a lot of fluff out there on the internet, to include YouTube right here, when it comes to VA disability. So this is going to be your above all else. Here is what matters the most. I'm very serious about that. In fact, it's the only thing that matters. Okay. You will hear people talk about personal statements. You'll hear people talk about buddy letters, lay evidence, nexus letters, private DBQs, using a company, using a VSO, doing your claim yourself, fighting appeals. The VA sucks this, the VA sucks that. And while all of those are options, okay, and some of them true, right? Every single one of those come back, no matter who you use, an attorney as well, come back to the big three. Okay, the big three are the requirements, meaning not optional. You must have these. To be as clear as I possibly can, the big three is not optional. You must 100% have every single one of these, period, point blank. That's it. There's nothing else to it. Okay. Now you can disagree with that. That's fine. This is 38 CFR VA regulation. This is how disabilities are service connected. Now the big three are the in-service event, the current diagnosis, and there's a hidden criteria there that we will talk about. And finally, the nexus. And no, I do not mean Nexus Letter. We'll also talk about that too, okay? Now, really quick, because I don't want to give the wrong impression here, I am a fan of every single way veterans can submit evidence-based claims. That's just what I want. Submit your evidence-based claim. If you use a company, that's great. In fact, I partner with a company because they are the best and cheapest, in my opinion, for option for veterans who do not want to do it themselves. Okay, that company is VetCom. I'm a big fan personally, and you're going to find that link in the description. Now, can you use a VSO? Absolutely. I'm a big fan of that too. I'm a big fan of submitting evidence-based claims. I don't really care how you do it. Now, don't get scammed. Don't pay 12 grand, 8 grand for your claim. VetCom is absolutely fact. They are the cheapest. My opinion is that they are the best. Okay. Now, starting with the in-service event, which simply means evidence from service. Now, in a picture-perfect world, evidence looks like medical evidence from your service treatment records. And if that's you, you are golden. You are the golden child of VA disability because you have evidence in your service treatment records that is medical, right? I went to the corpsman, my doc, and this happened. I had surgery and that happened. Okay. I have residuals. All of that's golden. If you have medical evidence from service, that is easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Now, the other side, which most veterans find themselves on, are those who have zero medical evidence. And that just sucks. Okay. So off the bat, just to put you in the right frame of mind, you are fighting an uphill battle if you do not have medical evidence from service, which, yes, most veterans fall into that category. I fell into that category. So you see, the in-service event or evidence from service can also be evidence other than medical. Okay. If I was good at editing, I would have that pop up. I ain't got time for that. Evidence other than medical. So I've seen personnel reports be used as evidence for a claim. I've seen fitness reports. The Marine Corps does annual fitness reports. The Army has NCO ERs, right? I've seen those be used. Statements, obviously discussing roles and responsibilities of certain MOSs or deployment. And as an example of that, someone in the infantry who has a current diagnosis of a knee condition that has obviously developed over time, meaning it didn't just show up one day off like an impact, right? It was deteriorated slowly over time. You can see years and years from that. But the statement talking about, they did foot patrols on deployments with packs, ammunition, radio, Thor, whatever that looks like, etc., right? That is evidence other than medical. So sometimes you have to be creative and just ask yourself, why is this condition related to military service, right? What is that answer? And whatever that answer is, you need to point the arrows to the VA and say, hey, VA, my knees, although I never complain in service, right? Because of whatever reason, because we just don't complain. That's why, right? Since I don't have medical evidence from service, I still have all these other indicators of this knee condition stemming from service. Okay, now time is a part of that. And that's actually what we're going to cover in the current diagnosis. But there you go. You need evidence from service. It's not optional. And for all those people who say, I did my claim and I had zero evidence from service, you had evidence from service, you just didn't know it. Okay. It might have been evidence other than medical, but it's there somewhere. Now, the current diagnosis is pretty simple, and it's the hidden criteria here that will trip up a lot of people, especially when it comes to evidence other than medical, which we just talked about, right? So current, meaning within 1 year, and chronic, meaning it's a condition that isn't going anywhere. It's going to be there. So scraping your knee when you fell while running is not a chronic condition, and neither is a stuffy nose. Now, patellar instability in your knee and sinusitis, those are chronic conditions. Those aren't going anywhere, right? They need to be treated. They're probably going to get worse over time. That's a chronic condition, much, much worse than scraping your knee. So it's got to be diagnosed, and I highly recommend you submit your claim with a diagnosis instead of relying on the CMP examiner. CMP examiners on a one-time visit are very reluctant to diagnose, just like any other healthcare provider out there, okay? A one-time visit is not always going to cut it for a diagnosis. Now, if it's very apparent, right? For instance, you have acne that's covering 40% of your back. That can be a one-time diagnosis, right? So it just depends on what we're talking about. But I highly recommend you have the intent to file for 1 year, just get the diagnosis or at least documented medical evidence. Now, the hidden criteria is continuity of symptoms, and this gets everybody, okay? People like to say continuity of care, and in fact, I've said that in the past, but that's not really the case. It's just symptoms. Show the VA your continuity of symptoms. So, for instance, let's have a scenario. If you served from 1980 to 1984, okay, and this really affects your OG veterans, and you have medical evidence of migraines from service, right? You have complaints, you were given medication, you are golden in the sense of medical evidence from service. However, from 1984 all the way to 2024, okay, about 40 years, which is wild to say right now, nothing. There's no complaints in here, nothing at all. You have to fill that gap. Okay, that's continuity of symptoms. I had a brain fart there. I apologize. Right? So fill that gap. Did you take over-the-counter medication? Right? Make a statement, do a lay statement. You know, if you have a spouse, a friend, you have to fill that gap. And not just once. It's got to be continuous. Okay, what is your migraines like from 1984 to 2024? Like me, my lifeline is Tylenol. I survive on Tylenol, and if I have to, I'll take a sumatriptan that's prescribed. I try not to. I'm not a big fan of medication, to be honest with you. Plus, it'll knock me out, and I'll be useless all day. But whatever that is for you, okay, you're going to need to fill that gap because the diagnosis needs to be current, chronic, and continuous to be considered a disability in the context of VA. Okay. Now, the last one is the Nexus Letter, which is the basis of connecting this to service. Okay. The Nexus is like the big money winner. No evidence from service, you're not going to win. No diagnosis, you have no claim. No Nexus, you're not going to win. Okay. Now, your Nexus depends on your evidence from service and your current diagnosis. Without those, the Nexus cannot be established. It can't be, okay? So before you go running to a Nexus Letter, make sure you submit your evidence to whoever that person's going to be if you go down that route, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Now, to be very clear, because I kind of mushed those two together, the Nexus is going to be made by the CMP examiner, which is going to be contracted by the VA, and if you're lucky, it'll be at a VA medical center. That's like less than 10%. It's probably less than that right now. Okay, that's over here. CMP exams over here. They make the Nexus. Nexus letters way over here, and it had nothing to do with, they're completely separate. Okay, Nexus letters is when you go to your treating physician or referred, right? And if that's not an option, then you can go the private route and you essentially pay for a CMP exam at that point. It's a one-time visit, medical opinion, DBQ, whatever it is that you need. Those are separate, okay? Now, since I talk about Nexus Letters, I am a big fan of that, okay? I'm a big fan of Nexus Letters. But in my opinion, veterans should start considering these for appeals only, okay? The overwhelming, and I'm talking like probably over 90% of all claims are connected, approved, awarded without a Nexus letter, okay? Because the process is not perfect, but it does work. If it didn't work, you wouldn't have over 7 million veterans service connected, okay? Now, it's my opinion you use Nexus letters in the appeals process only. Now, can you submit a Nexus letter up front with your initial claim? Absolutely can. Go for it. There's actually 2 scenarios that I would recommend that. That's if you're going to go from 90 to 100, right? Or if that claim is going to get you to 100, right? Usually it's going to be 90 to 100. All of a sudden, it's worth it, in my opinion. And then some secondaries, right? Like mental health, secondary to chronic pain. You're probably going to want some solid evidence for that. Now, in my description, you'll see links to 3 different companies. Some are really fast. Some have a wait list, specialties, right? It depends on what you want and need the Nexus for. But I want to be clear, although they're in my description, and obviously they pay to be there, okay? There's no secret. Veterans do not need one unless you're in the appeals process. Now, if you're blessed, okay, and you have the option and you want to submit the best evidence-based claim you possibly can, absolutely go for it. I'm obviously a big fan, right? You'll see VetCom. I'm a big fan of VetCom as well. And you'll see like VeteranAI, VA home loans. I mean, pretty much anything that veterans need is going to be in the description. And you'll see that just on just about every single video here on this channel if you need one of these tools, right? So go for it. And if you don't, keep them in your back pocket just in case. And hopefully you don't need to use them at all. Now, the VA home loan is a big one, so don't forget that one. But yeah, that's all I got. The big 3 matters most. I don't care who submits your claim. I don't care who adjudicates your claim. I don't care about your CMP examiner. I don't care if you submit your claim yourself, attorney, VSO, right? You use a company. It's the big 3 that matters. So whatever option you use, make sure you and them, whoever they is, that's funny, understands the big 3. Okay? That's all I got. Thank you very much.